how critical it is to have clarity of message and vision. I think there's very few things that can damage a culture more than when they're like, I don't know where we're going. I'm confused by the message. So, for me over the last couple of years, it's been really that journey of learning, okay, how do you lead from that standpoint of making sure that you got the vision, everyone's aligned.
What's up, everyone? Today we have a great episode with Brock Blake, the CEO of Lendio. Brock's an inspiring guy, and this is a really amazing story of how one founder took a unique moment in time to really double down and make a big bet. In this episode, we're going to learn all about what that big bet was, his business, Lendio, and some of the lessons that he's learned rapidly scaling his company during a time of change.
Yeah, I think what I really loved about this episode is the idea that Brock also talks about how important it is to not only have a vision, to share it and make sure everyone is intensely aligned. I think in this case, given everything that was going on in the world and what they do, it was one of those examples of a company that was really improving some of the biggest pain points in society, which is really exciting. So I loved hearing Brock talk about that.
It's very inspiring to hear how he was able to get his team to really just do a Herculean task when there was a big opportunity for them. So enough of my blabbering. Let's hear from Brock on this episode. Hey, Brock, how you doing?
Great, Scott. How are you?
Doing excellent and excited for this conversation. I love talking to people that have really found a way to do tremendous things in time periods that are, call it, unconventional. And, when we were talking a little bit before the show about your business, a lot of people may have remembered the PPP loan phase of things and what that meant for businesses. And you guys played a critical role in that. And so I want to hear about that. But maybe before we do, maybe you could give just a quick high-level overview of what Lendio is.
Yeah, great. So Lendio is a marketplace for small business owners to get loans. So think you're a restaurant or a landscaper or something like that. You need capital to grow your business. You could go bank to bank to bank applying for a loan. You get declined, filling with paper-based out applications and whatnot. So what we do is simplify that experience. You come to one place, complete an application. We pull bank data, credit data, tax return data, and then we have hundreds of lenders on the backside and evaluate your application versus all the other lenders and their criteria, and then bring to light to that business owner the multiple loan options that they can comparison shop and look at the rate, the term, the payment amount, and choose the product that is the best fit for them. And so we have helped hundreds of thousands of small businesses secure probably about $13-14 billion of loans during our time. And we call it fueling the American dream. We're so passionate about small business and helping them get the capital they need to grow their business. And so we're the largest marketplace in the US and growing and excited about the future.
That's exciting. Were you running a small business at one point and had trouble getting a loan? How the heck did you end up here?
Yeah. So when I graduated from school, I entered this entrepreneurial competition. And it was kind of like the TV show, The Apprentice, back in the day. I don't know if any of you remember that, but it was, without all the camera and the glitz and glamour, but we had 100 applicants we went through. They chose 20. We went through this 8-week boot camp where we're doing a sales competition and a marketing competition and whatnot. So I won. I was one of the 5 that won and got $50,000. And I could use that to start a business or buy a business or do anything. And so I started just going out and talking to business owners and talking to them about, their problems and what were their challenges and looking at businesses that I could potentially buy or start and whatnot. And it seemed like every business owner that I spoke to, their number one pain point was they needed access to capital and they couldn't solve for that. So we originally started this concept, well, let's help the business owner raise money, get investors. And so it was kind of like Angel List before Angel List existed, but it was more on the equity side. And we did these speed pitching events. You go around table to table to table, pitching your idea to a bunch of investors. And we realized, the majority of Main Street America is never going to raise money from an angel or venture capitalist. Most of Main Street America is going to need some sort of loan, an SBA loan or a credit card or something like that. So we really pivoted after a few years, kind of banging our head against the wall, and realized that this lending opportunity is a big market, really serves Main Street. It's and solved that original little pain point that we learned about during those initial interviews.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it reminds us a lot of our business where vision remains the same. Maybe kind of the tactics of how you get there evolve after you get some of that in-market experience, and that makes a ton of sense. And so it sounds like recently, just based on what's happened over the past couple of years, have been in a pretty interesting, unique position in terms of the demands of the market and then what that means for your business. I'd love to hear about it and just how you've turned adversity into an opportunity for you guys.
Yeah. So let's just take ourselves back pre-pandemic for a minute. And, we are growing this business. We're venture backed. We're growing nearly 100% year over year. We're 23 or 24 months in a row hitting plans. So we're like, we've got these ambitious goals, and we're just feel like we're on this tear. And all of a sudden in, Q1 of 2020, we start hearing about the coronavirus and this pandemic, and there starts to be some fears and some shutdowns and some quarantines. And pretty much overnight, every lender on our platform stopped lending. And the reason for that was justified. No one knew what the world was going to look like in the next day or the next week or the next month. And so they couldn't justifiably lend and have confidence that they were going to get return on their capital. So we went from, funding, nearly 100 million a month in loan volume to zero overnight. And that you can imagine a venture-backed company and a company that's growing and all these team members, and we had a couple, I think 200 team members, and to just go to zero overnight was scary as all get out. And we weren't sure exactly what to do. And I started to kind of understand, reading, or paying attention to what was happening around the CARES Act and the stimulus package, and how they were talking about there was the Paycheck Protection Program that would be able to give every business in America a loan to be able to keep their doors open and maintain their payroll and their team members. And I remember sending a text to my board saying, it was a quote I quoted of Winston Churchill that basically said that every man, there comes a moment in someone's life where they are figuratively tapped on the shoulder and given this unique opportunity that they are only qualified to do. And I totally butchered that quote, but I sent that quote to the board, and I said, I don't know what the Paycheck Protection Program is, but I know every business owner in America can get it, and we are uniquely qualified to deliver that. And so I want to go all in. And fortunately, we had the trust of the board. And what going all in meant is, even though we didn't know how the loans were going to work, or if we were going to be able to make any money or whatever, and it was a big bet. We could either pull way back and, do layoffs and furloughs and wait the market out. And a bunch of people in our space did. Or we could go all in and say, we're going to go after this opportunity and we're going to figure it out. And so the board, bought into this idea of let's go after it, and we'll figure it out. So we hired 250 employees. We started rallying our engineering team around building this Paycheck Protection Program application, and they launched the PPP program. And the first day, there's two things that happened. The first thing, well, they hadn't launched it yet. They were about to launch it. The day before it launched, I posted a tweet, and this tweet went viral like crazy. And it was basically saying that the SBA was a mess. And that tweet ended up putting me on CNN and CNBC and every single kind of media, talk show. And we were written up in the New York Times, Wall Street Journal. We had literally over 3 days, it was back to back press interviews about what was happening around this Paycheck Protection Program. So it thrust Lendio into the spotlight. And then when we launched when they launched the Paycheck Protection Program, we had like 100,000 applications in 24 hours. We had more applications in those 24 hours than we did in like the previous 6 months combined, or something like, it was crazy numbers. So anyways, this was an extremely challenging and difficult moment in our career, because it was literally took 10 years off my life. I feel like, because it was you're trying to do something in a short amount of time that's never been done before, rallying a team with an incredible amount of pressure and stress and everything else. And there's a million stories that I could tell, after that, but I'll wrap up this portion with this thing, which what I learned became very, very poignant lesson that I had during that experience was never underestimate the ability of a group of individuals that rally around a mission. And we changed our mission from fueling the American dream to saving the American dream. That we've got these millions of small business owners in America that were scared and nervous and not sure if they were going to make it the next day. They saw the money running out and they were anxious and like, I got to get, my hands on some of these loans, and so desperate. And our organization just rallied to do some incredible things. And we flew close to the sun. We almost died about 5 times along the way, but it really kind of thrust us into the spotlight, and we delivered. So we helped hundreds of thousands of small businesses during that time frame secure about $10 billion of PPP loans, and saved, we believe, around 1.5 million jobs during those kind of 6 weeks.
Wow, that's insane. That's a pretty amazing story, Brock. I guess something that's going through my head right now is when I hear things like payroll protection programs and government assistance. I guess I'm just curious to hear more about what Lendio's role in that was, because traditionally, if I understood this correctly, like you guys were doing some of the lending or helping people get these loans more directly, maybe from banks or other capital sources. And then secondly, I'm also interested to hear more about any sort of, whether it was emotionally based or any market signal that you were looking at that made you feel that this was the right time to make that all-in bet, and what the impact of that was, more specifically, versus those competitors that pulled back in the lending market.
Yeah. So, we're not a lender. We're a marketplace. We don't take any balance sheet risk. And so our role in that was facilitating, gathering all of the applications and doing all the legwork on behalf of hundreds of banks. Part of the reason why it was so emotionally charged and so stressful was because we had done this prep work in about 2 weeks' time. We'd gone out and we'd secured about 300 lenders that said, "Yeah, I want to do these PPP loans." But what happened during the PPP loans launched on a Friday, and by Monday, every bank in America, including us, had received so many applications that they were completely overwhelmed. And by Monday, every single one of those 300 financial institutions basically said, "Lendio, we can't take on any of your applications because we're already overwhelmed ourselves. And so we don't actually need help getting new customers. We have way too many we can handle." So that was part of the stress of flying close to the sun. Is, we were thrust in the spotlight saying, "Hey, business owners, we're going to help facilitate and make this process simple." We developed technology when everyone else was doing it manually. So we built some automated ways to gather the application. And so we got 100,000 applications. And Monday, and I'm stoked. I'm like, this is awesome. We got all these businesses we're going to help. And then Monday, every single one of our lenders was like, "Sorry, I can't take any of those applications." And what? From 300 lenders to 0. And what are we going to do with all these customers and how, that are dependent on us? And, and Monday turned into Tuesday, and we're still getting applications. We didn't have many lenders, and we're dialing every lender in America who can take on more applications, who can take on. And led to Wednesday, my team's starting to get nervous. We hired all these people. We got all these applications. We are all in. and I'm just like not sleeping at night, and I've got so much pressure. The pressure was crazy because imagine, think about every business owner that your friends, your neighbors, people from elementary school or college, or from your neighborhood or your church organization, or whoever, your cousins, your family members. And they all come to you, to one, the two of you, and they say, Andre and Scott, my business is going to die if you don't help me get a loan. And they're texting you every day, hey, what's going on with my loan? And so you feel this, not only 100,000 applications, but very personal, that they're looking at this business kind of seeping through their hands as they're going through this. So anyways, emotionally, it was just so stressful. Finally, by Thursday night of that week, we landed a deal with a lender that said we could take on as many applications as you send us. We cut a deal. And it was just like the biggest, relief to be able to, and we submitted all the applications, got like the first morning, got like 30,000 approved in one day. And it was a huge, huge relief out. But so we were facilitating and streamlining all the applications, and emotionally, it was, like I said, it was the most challenging thing I've ever done in my career. Managing the logistics, the pressure, the stress, the amount of applications, the changing landscape was just crazy.
What did you do to try to self-regulate and keep it together during that?
Sometimes you talk about working 20-hour days, and whether you actually do, or not, you're basically stating I'm working a lot.
Right.
This time frame, we were for about 5 weeks. We literally worked 20-hour days for every day, no weekends, no breaks, for about 5 weeks straight. And I was, going to bed at midnight, waking up at 4 or 5. And everyone was at home, working from home, and, hired 250 employees. So you're trying to manage what's the customer experience, what's the technology, with, working with the operations, the pressure. And, for me, essentially I would wake up, I would, and we had a bunch of, customers on Twitter reaching out, and all that pressure, and kind of responding to customers that way. And then I would go and I would get about 40 minutes where I could go and get some sort of workout in. And cause I had to, that was the only way for kind of sanity purposes. So I'd go for a jog, or get a lift in, or go on a walk with my wife, or do something. But even then, a lot of times I was taking calls on the walk during it. And then, but I'm married with 4 kids. And so because everyone was quarantined, we drove down to Southern Utah and stayed down there for about 10 days. And just little moments where I could, go outside and ride a bike around the block, with my kids, or just, my wife was so supportive, put together, made dinners and have dinner, family dinner, just like it was either exercise, outdoor walks. Like sometimes I'd walk along my back lane and just try and just kind of de-stress, and time with my family. It was basically the 3 things that I could do.
Yeah. I mean, that definitely resonates. Of kind of, not to the extent you're talking about, but certainly have been through those phases of really needing to sprint. That's a lot to ask for your employees, to have that prolonged just commitment, frankly, to their job. Like as a founder and as an owner, you have a lot on the line. And so you have that extra gear. But for people that maybe were at the company a couple months earlier and like, yeah, this is a pretty good job. Like, excited to grow my career. And all of a sudden it's, hey, we're going to ask you to work basically 2 shifts in a single day and do this for a long time. How did you get people on board with that? And then I would also ask the transparent question. I mean, were there some people that just said, no, like, I don't want to do this. This isn't what I signed up for.
So, I think that goes back to that lesson I learned. Like, our team was bought into this. It was a moment, right, where it kind of felt like we're putting the cape on, and we are here to help save these small businesses. And so it was a lot of our team members, like the majority of the team members, were so bought into that it wasn't much that I had to ask. It was just like, it's either us or no one at this point. And it changed later on, but early on so the team really bought into that, but it took a toll. Like it took a serious toll on some people, their mental and emotional health and psyche, like that was really, really challenging. It took a toll on family relationships periodically. This was a time where the entire world is quarantined. Like my wife, for example, like all of her friends are like, this is the best, all of my, and that are married, right? My husband's home every day for dinner and we're like working from home, and during the day we can go to the grocery store, and they're just talking about how awesome this is to have everyone kind of working from home. And she's like, I haven't seen my husband in 3 weeks. And it wasn't just me, it was a lot of team members. And so, it was, there was a lot of adrenaline, a lot of Red Bull, and but we were trying to send meals into their homes every single day, on DoorDash. And we turned, like the pace was so fast that we turned into daily stand-ups where we were, trying to stay connected. So, because everything was moving so quickly, morning stand-ups, afternoon stand-ups, and kind of each team member looking out their team. It was amazing to see the way our team members looked after other team members. But there were individuals who was just like, this isn't what I signed up for, or some that just couldn't handle the stress, and I couldn't fault them for it. But you also had other team members that part of that 250 that we hired, a lot of them had lost jobs. They'd been laid off just like the week before. And they were scared because they were like, I just got laid off. We're going into this pandemic. I don't know if I'm going to, and then Lendio like came in to hire them, and they were like, oh, and we're going to save businesses. And they brought in extra energy. So you had just so many different dynamics at play. I'm just, so impressed with the team, the collective team, and way we kind of looked after each other.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like when the pain point that you're solving for is so relevant and in people's faces, I think that alignment and that rallying around the vision becomes a little bit easier to do or keep intact for an extended period of time. So, Brock, I want to go and take a little bit of a leap forward towards today. I think I'd love to hear more about where Lendio is right now, what you're most focused on, and what you think the most important thing you're doing right now is.
So after the pandemic, we went basically you're focused on 100% of PPP loans, and then those go away. And now it's like, all right, back to business. What do we do? And kind of handling some of the fatigue and whatnot that came during that time frame. But what I've been so impressed with, we've rallied. We're now kind of doing more volume, helping more small businesses, more revenue than ever before. And some of the things I'm most excited about right now, I think it's interesting, the different phases of a business, whether you go from 0 to 1 million in revenue, 1 to 10, and we're pushing on the 100 million, kind of mark, and organizationally, as the company gets larger and you've got different revenue streams, and what's the organizationally, do you do a matrix organization? Do you do departments? Do you when you have different revenue streams and stuff like that? So those are some things that we're kind of working through today, and part of that is because we made an acquisition. So we our focus has always been helping these small business owners, and we worked with lenders, like we facilitated with lenders. But what we've realized was that we've got, all of these banks and credit unions were doing a lot of it manually. During the pandemic, they got a taste of what it would be like to automate loans, and they liked it. And so now post-pandemic, they're saying, hey, we need to get technology and automate these lending. So we went out and acquired an underwriting engine that basically allows a bank to automate and fund loans at night when the branch is closed without a human. And so that's been fun to be able to say, we've got this core business that's growing and doing really well. And now how do we layer into that other revenue streams, other product lines, other things like that, and do it in a way where it gets enough resources and it isn't kind of the stepchild of the main business. So those are some of the things that, from a strategic standpoint, from a resource standpoint, from a growth standpoint, super excited about it. But going from one product to multiple product in your evolution as a business is a challenge. There's not a lot of playbooks out there that tell you how to do that.
That is a whole different beast, and what that can mean for people and process, especially if, it isn't just like a natural upsell. Like there can be two distinct entities that live separately and aren't just, frankly, just like a better skew of what you're already doing.
Right. So our marketplace business is based on we get paid an origination fee every time a loan funds. So we sign up lenders. They commit to a certain number of loan volume, but we recognize revenue as we deliver a new customer to them. So every time a loan funds, we get paid. So it's transactional in nature. And when we went out and acquired this underwriting product, this is what we're now doing is selling a SaaS license to banks and credit unions. And so, we've built this whole and a lot of comfort and strength and expertise around a marketplace, a two-sided marketplace. And now you're learning developing new muscle groups around the sales motion and go-to-market and product marketing and everything around SaaS pricing. And, we're stoked about it. We know that where the magic happens, where two of these pieces come together, but it is really unique and different and challenging to be able to say, well, man, we've got all this energy and excitement and growth over here. And now, we're launching this second product line, but it's a totally different business model. It's totally different. There's just so much unique and different nature to getting that off the ground that is a challenge. And I'm as a CEO trying to digest as much as I can from other CEOs that have done something like that to shorten the learning curve and accelerate the go-to-market.
Yeah. And I think, not trying to reinvent the wheel is obviously a great thing to do for any leader. And I guess my question for you would be like, what have been your biggest personal evolutions in the past 2 or 3 years? Where have you grown as a leader and a CEO? And I think a lot of our aspiring CEOs and even existing ones would be interested to hear that.
I think that one of the things that I've learned the most as we've grown as an organization is how critical it is to have clarity of message and vision. So being able to articulate, this is where we're going over the next 1 to 3 years. This is what it looks like. Here's what here's how you can describe it. This is, if in 3 years, this is how we should look and how we should act and the types of customers and the number of customers. So you paint that vision fairly clearly and having this kind of outcome mindset. And then being able to then, how do you align the organization up against that vision? How do you make sure that as you bring that, start with a 3-year and then map that back to today, what needs to happen this month, this quarter, next quarter? What resources do we have to put in place to make sure that we are hitting that in 3 years? So painting a vision that's very clear, and then identifying, very specific milestones of how you can basically creating a map or a path from where I am today versus how I need to get there. and then make sure that, you're properly aligning resources and individuals against those, for me, is one of the most important things, as a CEO, because people are always, if they feel a lack of clarity, if they feel like I'm not sure where the company's going, or they feel like there's a lack of transparency, when there starts to be doubt, I think there's very few things that can damage a culture more than when they're like, I don't know where we're going. I'm confused by the message. I'm not sure if, Lendio is making the right decisions, or whoever the leaders are. So, for me, over the last couple of years, it's been really that journey of learning, okay, how do you lead from that standpoint of making sure that you got the vision, everyone's aligned to it.
Yeah. And I think what you're talking about is super relevant and important. On the bright side, I feel like we kind of have watched the era of marketplace businesses unfold in front of us over the last, 10 years, I would say. And, what you guys are doing is something that we've seen a decent amount of marketplace businesses kind of transition into, things like a B2B offering from Lyft's perspective, or Uber or DoorDash and a lot of these other, businesses. And so I guess I would love to hear how you're thinking about this, new product and, from what you can share, just some of the trade-offs that you might be thinking about as you look to invest or more in that segment, or what you see as the vision moving forward.
Yeah. So there's an article written out there by Rackspace's former CEO. His name's Lanham Napier. Lanham is actually down in Austin, and very influential kind of investor, total stud. Got to meet him and got to know him fairly well. But he wrote this article for MIT. The article, they did this PhD study around the most successful companies have this combination of marketplace plus SaaS plus data. And he starts to go into this descriptive of like how those things interact, marketplace business model and the SaaS and data, and gives, all these examples of companies that have done that. Whether, that's Shopify, or whether that's Apple, or whether that's Google, or whether that's Amazon, or, the most successful kind of tech companies out there have some combination of marketplace SaaS plus leveraging data to be really smart. And so, we got a hold of that article, and we spent, basically did a full, 2-day offsite with our senior leadership team around what are the common characteristics of these companies, and really trying to study those in great detail. And so as a leadership team, we could identify what that modern business model means and how they interact and they work together. It was one of the best kind of sessions we've ever had as a leadership team, because it was first, let's learn like what are the characteristics of these very successful companies, and then how do we apply what we're doing at Lendio and compare it up against it. Where are we lacking? Where are we really strong? Where are we deficient? And obviously in the marketplace we're really strong, and in the data we gathered a lot of data. We just weren't using it in the way that he talked about. So that's been something that's kind of been a North Star for us, to be able to say, okay, this modern business model where you combine these three things together, and driven our approach on how we are launching SaaS and how we are leveraging data. And we hope that, it's kind of your first inning, second inning, third inning, right? Of where marketplace was first inning. Now, okay, what do we do? What's that second layer that we're adding to it? And it's a learning curve, and it's a challenge, and we haven't figured it out yet, but we're fairly optimistic and excited to go through that journey.
I'm very familiar with that business model. It's super compelling, and I think it's really thoughtful of you guys to have that kind of North Star of, here are like the business mechanics that we believe are ideal, and how do we align our vision to that? That makes a ton of sense. Brock, I guess just kind of finishing out here, what's next for Lendio? What can we expect over the next 1 to 2 years, both internally and externally, for those people that are excited about what you're doing?
Yeah. So for us, man, I hope in 2 years that we've got a thriving SaaS business, then we've got a bunch of customers and annual recurring revenue and to layer into what we're doing. We feel like this is such a big market and a big opportunity. So we feel like, we're just kind of getting started here. On the other hand, we don't have $1 in SaaS revenue. We've got a lot of excitement, a lot of interest, and a really great product. And so, I think that journey for us going, product market fit, what does the go-to-market look like? How do we gain customers? How do we establish that? What's that sales motion? How does it interact with marketplace? I think is going to be a real fascinating, it'll be fun to 2 years from now kind of look back and say what went as planned and what doesn't. As you know, building the business, it's never kind of as you exactly hope. But our ability to adapt has been really good in the past. So, hopefully we're in a position where, we're kind of the household name among small businesses and getting them access to capital and doing it in an automated way.
Well, I love the vision. I have no doubt you guys will get there. And we're just really grateful for having you on the show. I mean, this was so much interesting insights and wisdom, and we're grateful for you spending some time with us, Brock.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I love your show. Love what you're doing. I've heard, listened to a few of the episodes and love the different topics you guys cover. So keep up the great work. Thanks for doing it.
All right. We'll see everybody on the next one.